hello to everyone who has joined. If you have not said hello in the chat already, please feel free to do that. If you all can see my slide, it should say 3 keys to building a 2024 DEI strategic plan. Just put a yes or a thumbs up in the chat. Thank you so much. Okay, just wanted to make sure. I don't know if you all have ever thought you were sharing and you weren't, or you were sharing the wrong screen. So just wanted to make sure of that. But again, I am so honored and excited for you all to be here today, have a really good discussion on how to build a 2024 strategic DEI roadmap. I am not sure where you all are in your DEI maturity at your company, but I'm going to give you a lot of tips and resources to really be able to take back to your organization to evolve your DEI maturity for 2024. And I hope that I'm going to be able to give you some things to really think about and consider so that you can actually set strategies and goals that are aligned with the resources and the readiness of your organization. So please continue to use the chat throughout today's session. Say hello if you want. This is an opportunity not only for you all to be here in the space with me, but to also network with each other and build with each other. I know that we have folks that are in various DEI, talent, HR roles. So all of your perspectives, your opinions, your experiences are really, truly valuable in this space. We need more spaces where we can come together and talk about DEI, people, talent, culture, all things on how to really build an emotionally safe and equitable workplace. So go ahead and get your notebook out and your pen out. We will have time for Q&A as well. So if you have questions as you are really taking in the material today, or just any burning questions you may have, as it relates to the things that you're working on internally at your organization, feel free to ask that today. All right, should we go ahead and dive in? I think we should. So moving forward here, why are we here today? So in our next hour, we have 3 key objectives. The first, I want to give you all some time to really truly reflect on what worked well this year and how you can evolve what you have put in place this year in 2024. It is so important before you set new goals, new plans, new strategies, launch new initiatives, that you really take the time to reflect on how things actually went this year. We'll do a bit of a reset as you plan for 2024. Not only should you take some time today to reflect, but you should also celebrate your wins. We're always busy professionals, always thinking about the next thing, the next initiative, right? If you are in the talent, people, HR, DEI space, you're probably constantly putting out fires, caring for the needs of so many other folks at work. I'm going to give you some time today to really take a step back and center yourself, center your team, and be proud of the work that you've done this year. We don't take enough time in our busy schedules to actually do that. So as much as you're reflecting on maybe this didn't go so well, I want you to take some time to reflect on what actually did go well. And then lastly here, I want to give you all some tips on how to really determine your organization's readiness and resource capacity to plan your 2024 efforts. If you are dealing with maybe fragmented data, a very small amount of resources, or perhaps your resources were cut this year, maybe if you're unclear of priorities, I want you to let me know that. I'm going to ask you a bit about some of those challenges you may be facing, some of your goals for next year. So let's get real today, because we know that this work is not easy. It's important, but it is not easy. And if you are in this industry, you're probably here because you're called to do it. And so I want to shout you out for being here. And if I have not had the opportunity to meet you, I do want to introduce myself. My name is Latesha Byrd. I am the CEO of Perfeqta. Perfeqta is a talent development agency that works at the intersection of culture transformation, DEI, leadership development. We're all about transforming company cultures that people love to work in. And our goal is to help build emotionally safe and equitable workplaces. Now, the reason why this topic is really critical today is because I have seen in this work where so many organizations are setting goals, planning initiatives that they may not truly be ready for, or they may not have the proper resources set up, the infrastructure set up, the right system set up to actually be effective. At Perfeqta, we have created several DEI strategic roadmaps for our client partners. We've helped our client partners launch DEI governance structures. We've done several trainings around allyship, bias, inclusive leadership, microaggressions. I've also really worked hand in hand with executive leadership teams on how to embed equity from the top down, how to vision the success of DEI at their organization. And our company has also created a DEI framework. In this framework, it helps our client partners really assess their DEI maturity and set goals to expand or evolve that maturity. So I'm going to bring that in to the webinar today as well. Based on my conversations with executives, based on the trainings that we've done, based on the roadmaps that we've created for our clients and the process that we've taken at Perfeqta to help our clients really launch effective DEI roadmaps, I have 3 keys on how to build an effective 2024 roadmap. But before I do that, let's reflect a bit on 2023. What was the biggest challenge you faced in your DEI efforts this year? Just drop it in the chat. What was your biggest challenge you faced in your DEI efforts this year? I know the common ones. I think every single one of our client partners have experienced a lot of challenges this year with DEI, especially coming off of such a highly visible industry and function in 2020. Things have changed a bit. Slowdown of the work, absolutely. Not enough capacity to deliver on as many initiatives as we wanted to. Lack of alignment on shared language, strategy, and evolution of strategy. Fear with Supreme Court and local legislators, rulings and laws. Let's talk about it, okay? Because some companies are shooketh in their bones to do anything DEI related. Staying organized, aligned, and guided with our big picture goals. Lex, that is such a really good one. I mean, it's not a good thing, right? But it is a very real challenge because working within DEI and setting these strategies and initiatives, you always have to stay focused on the big picture while moving the day-to-day along at the same time, which can be very, very challenging. If you want to do things right, pacing is so important. And that's one of the keys. One of the 3 keys I'm going to talk about today is the pacing of this work. How do you keep folks aligned with where we're trying to get to, while also being focused on what we're doing today in order to get there? Lack of accountability for senior leadership to engage. Y'all must be reading my slides, okay? Because Anika, that is actually one of the 3 keys. And that is one of the biggest challenges that many companies face is if you launch a DEI strategy, if your executive leadership team is not engaged with it, if they're not comfortable and confident in speaking to DEI, if they don't have a vision, right? If they're taking a step back and saying, well, that's not our job, that is on our DEI people HR team, right? Even though employees are looking to them for their support, for their buy-in, it's going to be hard to really get that true momentum you need. And that is one of the biggest challenges we've seen many organizations face this year. So thank you for bringing that up. And then crisis response to what's happening in the Middle East, the lack of trust this can create. There's been a lot of crises. Is crisis a word, y'all? Please correct me. There's a lot of crisis that's been happening this year. And how do you bring that up? Do you bring it up? Do you stay away from it? Do you create a space to engage with that in the workplace? Right? All of that can be challenging, and that does fall on the responsibility often of people, leaders, managers, or even those that are carrying DEI efforts forward. And then finding balance. Thank you. Totally agree with that. So I want to really here talk about some of the reasons here that makes it really critical to set clear, measurable DEI goals for 2024. The first one is that when you set clear, measurable DEI goals, you build employee trust and confidence in a company's DEI journey. It is really challenging to build employee trust, to build employee confidence, if you don't have a clear plan and that plan is not communicated with conciseness, confidence, and clarity, right? Now, employee trust is key if you're truly committed to building a workplace culture where belonging is really felt. Belonging, there's a strong presence of belonging. Without trust, there is no belonging. And employees are actually looking to the company, specifically leadership, on what the company's DEI vision is, and how they can buy into it, and how they are going to make sure that their emotional well-being, their emotional safety is really being nurtured. That will create a more productive, innovative, and creative workforce. The other reason here is that it gives you time to plan your timeline so you don't rush and you also don't overwhelm your colleagues. Going back to the original point I was discussing just a few seconds ago, pacing is extremely important when it comes to setting DEI goals. At Perfeqta, now again, we've seen it all. We work with companies that are smaller nonprofits with 50 employees, startups with 50 employees. We've supported mature startups that have went from 200 to 1,000 employees in 2 years. And we've also worked with the Fortune 500 companies. And this is true no matter what company size or industry you work in. If you don't set realistic and reasonable timelines, you are either trying to cram too many DEI initiatives into a very short amount of time that will overwhelm your employees, right? That will also, really kind of scale down on the quality because we're too focused on the quantity. And three, you're not giving enough time to actually scale your initiatives, get feedback from employees to have that continuous cycle of improvement. There have been organizations that have reached out to us at Perfeqta and have said, hey, Latesha, we want to, and I'm not even going to tell you all the timeline. I want you to guess the timeline in the chat, where they have said, hey, Latesha, we want to relaunch our ERGs. We want to develop an inclusive recruiting strategy. We want to host focus groups for our BIPOC employees. And we also want to establish a DEI committee and council. Guess how much time they want to do that in? All by next week is hilarious. A year, a quarter, 1 quarter. All right, Jesse and Dr. Session, a quarter. Yes, 3 months, y'all. 3 months to launch ERGs, an inclusive recruiting strategy, a new diversity steering council committee, and host focus groups, right? And we'll say, hey, we understand that you want to get all these things done, but you may want to give yourselves a little bit more time so that you can ensure you have the right buy-in and support along the way, right? So pacing is important. One of the most challenging roles within DEI is making sure you have good pacing. Why? Because this work is really critical. It's really important and everything feels urgent, right? When you are working in a role that is there to support employee well-being, mental health, right? Emotional safety, building inclusivity, right? All of those things feel demanding. There's a lot of pressure, but guess what? You can launch an initiative tomorrow, and that doesn't mean that all of a sudden belonging will happen for every single employee at the organization. So this is why it is very important to set your goals and set reasonable timelines as you are thinking about your goals. And I'm going to give you a kind of framework or a step-by-step process to really build upon so that you can set reasonable timelines. Is any of this resonating with you all? If it is, let me know in the chat. Just say yes in the chat if this is resonating. I want to make sure y'all are still here. Okay. Hey, Jacqueline. I hope you're doing well. All right. Let me keep moving, y'all, because I'm going to get on a tangent here. All right. The next one here, it provides an opportunity to plan resources, allocate action plans, and measure capacity of your existing DEI function. You may find that you may need to delegate, you may need to hire an external DEI consultancy, or you may need to focus on one priority before you launch the next, right? We have found at Perfeqta that when companies reach out to us to create an inclusive or diversity recruiting strategy, if they don't have the right infrastructure set up within their talent acquisition team to just have a standardized interview structure and process, we have to start there before we really focus on the inclusive recruiting strategy part, right? So when you understand your goals, you can figure out what needs to happen first, or as many folks say, putting the cart before the horse. Or maybe it's putting the horse before the cart. Y'all correct me in the chat here. This will also allow you to prepare for future challenges. There's also going to be unforeseen challenges. So as you are setting those goals, just remember that flexibility is key. We would have never thought that, you know, some of the things that have happened this year, whether that's with, unrest and war overseas, whether that is with, the legislation that's been happening, right, and is still continuing to happen to historically excluded communities today. Some of these things are unforeseen. So you want to make sure you don't have too much, rigidity, but also have a bit of flexibility there as well. You can reflect on 2023 while it's fresh and reset for the new year. This is why it's critical to do this now, because once the holidays come around, right, you might be off for a couple of weeks or for a few days and what have you, and you want to jump straight into 2024 planning. If you have not taken the time to truly reflect on 2023, right, you may be missing out on the opportunity now to get the feedback, right, to sufficiently plan, right, so that when you start 2024, you're not starting from scratch. You have already had the groundwork laid to actually build out an accessible roadmap and kick off the new year on the right foot. And then lastly here is aligning DEI goals with overall business goals. This is why it's so important to take the time to intentionally set DEI goals, because this is the time, y'all, to talk to your executive leadership teams, talk to the people leaders, talk to different leaders within the people, culture, and talent functions at your organization. And really understand what are their goals, right? What is the company moving towards, and how can DEI really be embedded into the overall business strategy that's happening? You don't want DEI to happen in a silo. DEI should be integrated into the DNA of the organization. And the way to do that is to align your DEI goals with your overall business objectives. So before we get into the 3 keys, let's talk about the makeup of some common mistakes that happen when creating a DEI strategy. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these. I just wanted to give you all just a snippet here of some of the common mistakes that we've seen. The first one here is relying on DEI or people teams only. This may resonate with some of you all if you are in a people DEI function talent role, if you are responsible for leading DEI in the organization, right? DEI should be on everyone's plate, right? It is a collective responsibility. Even if you're setting the strategy from the top, you need your colleagues within the organization to be able to integrate behaviors, actions, and practices into the day-to-day to make sure that the company is truly working towards equity and inclusion. Some other common mistakes is there could be a lack of understanding DEI, specifically within the context of how the company defines DEI. This is where having a mission, a vision is key. This is where talking to and educating the executive leadership teams on DEI is key, so that once they establish that vision or mission, when you're setting your strategies and goals, if it doesn't align with the mission and vision, it may not be as relevant to the company as you thought. Lack of data. You can't really measure progress if you're not tracking it. And oftentimes, we may set goals, we may set strategies, but we don't take it a step further to think about what does true success look like here and quantify that. If you can't quantify it, what qualitative data can you start to measure to really kind of assess if your strategy or initiative is working? Assuming employee needs. The work of DEI is not for us as a DEI practitioner and leader. It's for the people. It's for the people at the company. So if you go into it without really assessing your current state of DEI, current employee sentiments, employees' trust within leadership and the company as a whole, you may be setting strategies that are not actually evolving DEI. It might be a bit superficial. We're just doing it just to do it. But are we truly meeting and assessing the needs of our workforce? Underestimating resource needs, I'm going to talk about that in much more detail. Relying on ERG solely. Now, this may resonate with many of you all in the chat here. How many times have, and it doesn't have to be at your company, just in general, where we may ask the leader, tell us about DEI at your company, and the first thing they jump to is, oh, we have phenomenal ERGs. And listen, I am all for having effective, responsible ERGs that are an extension of a DEI strategy, but putting that weight and pressure on ERG solely to evolve DEI of the organization is missing out on a critical piece of making sure it's integrated into the full organization. And then dismissing L&D needs. Now, your DEI strategy should have an L&D component, but it should not exclude L&D, because people need education, right? People need to understand why DEI is important before they actually get towards the what and the how. And I've said this before, I really just want to double down on this, is that DEI is not just a policy or a department. It is a collective responsibility. And every one of us, regardless of our role, has a part to play in creating an inclusive and equitable workplace. Ask your leadership team what they believe their role is here. Make sure they understand that it is a collective responsibility, and you can evolve your DEI much faster when everyone truly has buy-in and understands the role that they play. So I am getting very close to sharing the 3 keys with you all, but let's talk about what an effective DEI strategic roadmap is. Have you created a DEI strategic roadmap? Are you in the process of creating one? Just drop a yes or no in the chat. I want to get a sense of who's here in the Zoom room. And I'll ask my question again in the process. Thank you, Sharon. Have you currently created a DEI roadmap? Are you in the process of creating one? In the process, starting, created one, mostly short term. Okay, great. So I always like to, before I jump into the keys of something, just level set here, so we're all really kind of speaking the same language and we know what exactly we're talking about when it comes to creating an effective DEI strategic roadmap. Let's just start with the basics. What is a roadmap? A roadmap is a strategic plan that guides an organization in implementing and maintaining effective DEI initiatives, right? Simply put, Now, I am not sure what timelines you all use for those of you that have created one or are in the process of it. At Perfeqta, we believe in creating 2 to 3 year roadmaps. We don't believe in creating 10-year roadmaps because guess what? Who knows what 2033 is going to look like, right? Every single company that maybe had a 10-year, 15-year DEI roadmap in 2020 had to completely redo everything that they had, right? Also, the workforce changes in terms of representation. The demographic of the employee base is changing quickly. Because of that, the needs are changing, right? And so we typically stick to a 3-year roadmap, and our 3 phases are structuring, scaling, and sustaining. Now, what should go into your roadmap? Timelines, priorities, year over year. So break it down year over year, and then within each year, quarter over quarter. You want to make sure that for each of your priorities, you have OKRs, objectives, and key results. So those are the goals, and also what is the result of when this goal is achieved. Identified owners. Who's actually doing this work? Who is responsible for it? Measurement of success, again, whether that is qualitative or quantitative data, and then action plans, step-by-step action plans of how the work is going to get done. Now, bonus points if you have a clear DEI vision, a DEI communications plan. When we create strategic roadmaps for our client partners at Perfeqta, we always create a DEI communications plan because your strategy can only go so far if you are not taking your employees along the journey and communicating it intentionally, thoughtfully, carefully, and in a way that aligns with your company values. A DEI learning and development roadmap. So it's important to be thinking about, okay, if we say we really want to diversify our talent pipeline and we want to launch an inclusive recruiting strategy, we're going to need some training. We're going to need some inclusive recruiting training for our TA teams, inclusive interviewing training for our hiring managers, right? It's going to be really challenging to launch an initiative if the employees that are actually responsible for carrying out the initiative aren't equipped and don't have the tools to do that well. Let's say we really want to build inclusive leadership within the company. Probably need some inclusive leadership training and coaching for that. So be thinking about your L&D strategy in tandem with your roadmap. And then last one here is you want to have a method of feedback and continuous evaluation. At minimum, you want to take a look at your roadmap on a quarterly basis. Again, that is at minimum. Some of you all this may not be 100% of what you do full time. Maybe you are a part of a DEI committee or council, but you may not be leading DEI full time, right? It really just depends here. If you are, of course, you want to be taking a look at that roadmap on a regular basis. So it just depends on the DEI function and capacity of your team. But you definitely want to just relook at your roadmap, check off what have we done, what needs to be pushed, what needs to move up, right? When we say we're measuring success, let's actually make sure that we are looking at those success measures we put in place. So again, you want to make sure you have a process here of how you are integrating feedback and then taking that feedback into continuous improvement with your roadmap. And finally, what you all came for is the 3 keys. So the first one is to assess your company's current DEI state. At Perfeqta, we have developed a DEI framework that identifies how you can measure your current state of DEI maturity. We have 5 stages here. If you want a copy of this, please send me a private message here. You can also reach out to us via email, message me on LinkedIn so I can get this in front of you. For those of you all that are creating strategic roadmaps, definitely spend time really assessing where are we within these 5 stages? Because depending on where you are, you will have, of course, different needs. At Perfeqta, many of our clients are between stage 1 and stage 3. We support companies that are mostly at the infancy stage, and we help them get from at least stage 1 to moving towards stage 3, stage 4, right? Awesome. Thank y'all so much. We will make sure that you all get a copy of this. Let me go to how. Actually, a question I have for you all is, taking a look at this, where do you think your organization is? Put it in the chat, or you can also just send me a message, privately. Stage 1 is you're just getting started. You have the ambition to create a strategy, a little bit of governance. Maybe it's you, maybe it is a committee or a council. Maybe you're at stage 2, where you have some ad hoc or irregular DEI efforts, but there is an opportunity to build this into a full strategy. Maybe you are having an annual unconscious bias training in an ERG or a couple of ERGs. You probably are at stage 2. Now, stage 3 is where you are creating that strategic roadmap. You have defined ownership. You have a DEI communications plan. Again, the goal is to get to stage 5, and that is where DEI is actually informing the company's business, overall business strategy and state for the future. All right, awesome. So it's great to see you all. Some are in structuring, stage 2, stage 3. So love that. This is how we actually measure the 5 stages. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I just wanted to put this in front of you all because it's going to be important to really think about which of these areas do you need to focus on as you're building your 2024 strategies. Maybe governance is where you should be focused, right? You actually need a team of people to kick off your DEI initiatives well. If it's just you, you may need a committee, you may need a council, not even may, you will need to put that, right? Maybe you already have that, but you might need a DEI program manager, or it's time to launch ERGs, right? Governance really falls there. Talent programs is how are you developing the talent across the employee life cycle, looking at recruiting, retention, advancement, promotion, the succession planning of employees. How is DEI integrated into that process, right? And so I'm going to make sure you all get this so you can really see which of these 6 areas should you be focused on to really evolve your DEI maturity. Now, as you move into stage 3, stage 4, you'll start to focus more on the last 2 here, which is stakeholder engagement and accountability and reporting. All right, which is how are we not just engaging with our employees, but how are we engaging with our community, with our clients and customers, right? With our buyers or users. And then accountability and reporting is how are we actually measuring and tracking the success of our initiatives through DEI analytics, having a DEI dashboard, having an annual DEI report, right? So that is the first one. Once you really understand your current state, our framework will also allow you to take a look at what you want your future desired state to be. And what happens in between getting you from your current state to your ideal or desired DEI state, that is your DEI strategy, right? That is where those goals really come to life. Now, when you're setting those goals, you want to set realistic timelines and resource needs. I'm going to go through each of these. Engaging the right stakeholders in this process, right? Again, I mentioned this earlier, when you are doing the work of DEI, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the people. So are you bringing the right people in to your thought process? Do some discovery. Of course, you want to make sure you engage with your DEI committee council. You talk to your HR talent teams on what their priorities are for the next year. Talk to ERG leaders, because ERG leaders have a really solid understanding of their community's employee sentiments, needs, right? This is where understanding the employee experience will allow you to really create intentional DEI strategies that do support their emotional safety. People managers, right? So make sure you have a diverse range of voices from levels to functions to different communities. And a really good thing about engaging with stakeholders throughout the process is that while you're doing that, you're bringing them into the journey. You're getting their buy-in along the way without them even knowing it. Because if you get their feedback, take their feedback, or you find a way to partner with them, they're going to be more invested into the work. Now, methods of engagement look different, depending on the group. You could do focus groups, surveys, review your surveys in detail, one-on-one interviews, and then estimate your resource requirements. So once you break each goal down into actions, you may need to think about what additional areas do we need to invest in to make sure we successfully achieve our goals. There are costs that come up. And if you think about that on the front end, it'll be easier for you to secure that sponsorship and approval that you need. DEI training, DEI analytics tools, right? Investing in diversity, recruiting partnerships, investing in partnerships with the community, it all takes money. So you do want to think about the additional resource needs that you have, financial needs, because if you get to Q2 and say, oh, we actually need to invest in training, we need to invest in bringing in an external partner for some advising or thought partnership work. If that wasn't approved in the annual budget, it may be hard to get more resources. So as much as you can think about that now, the better. And then a big thing that is missed are the indirect costs. Now, what I mean by indirect cost is time. This work truly takes time. And so as much as you are planning your timelines and your resource needs, think about the time that will go into it, not just of yourself, but of the other folks that you need to partner with, collaborate with, or engage with to carry out your needs, or your actions. Consider a cultural readiness assessment as well. At Perfeqta, we work with a lot of organizations that are going through significant change, whether that is mergers and acquisitions, restructuring, team downsizing, completely changing up business models and what have you. So you do want to think about the cultural readiness that the organization has holistically and how that may impact your DEI readiness. And then setting timelines. When you are setting timelines, I know I've talked about considering the financial, those direct and indirect costs, but even think about the complexity of each goal. If your company is truly ready for it, and the company's operational calendar. Once you get an understanding of different company objectives, events, right, strategies that are happening that may either delay, distract from your DEI priorities. So you want to make sure you have a really good understanding of what's happening holistically at the company. And again, where DEI can effectively fit in well from a timing perspective. And the last key here is gaining executive leadership buy-in. Now, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function. I am getting down to the end of this, and I appreciate you all. I know I've been talking a lot. I've been talking a whole lot. But if you have questions, please drop your questions in the Q&A, and we'll have about 10, 15 minutes at the end to go through some of those questions. All right. The last key is gaining executive leadership buy-in. Is this an area that you all do want to really focus on for the year? Have you found that this is a big need for you? Just drop a yes in the chat if so. Or do you feel like you have strong executive leadership buy-in? Half and half. Buy-in, yes. Accountability, less so. Verbal support, gap in how it's expressed daily. Ooh. All right, Pam, let's talk after this because that's a good one. Buy-in is so critical. Absolutely. And yes, to get authentic buy-in, CEO is bought in. Awesome. How do you kind of bridge the gap between the verbal commitment and the physical commitment, the action behind that, right? Let's talk about this. There's a few different things you all can think about now to get executive leadership buy-in, because without it, it's going to be hard for you to really evolve your DEI efforts. The first one is demonstrating the business case. And I'm going to add the second one here together, using data and research. Executives love data. They love numbers. They love the research. Don't just communicate that it is good for people to feel safe at work. We know it is, right? But sometimes leaders care about growing the business, keeping their teams productive, keeping them, making sure they're making the best decisions. They have high engagement, employee retention, which saves a company a lot of money instead of having talent as a revolving door. So demonstrating the business case is really important. There's tons of research and studies out there that truly do prove that investing in DEI is good for business, right? So use that to your advantage. If you can really understand what their specific goals are in the organization, maybe they really care about employee retention. They really want to make sure their products are innovative. They want to make sure they're building trust, right? Understand what is important to them as it relates to DEI, right? That'll be your way to kind of hook them and get them engaged. You also want to provide industry success stories. Some leaders don't want to look like they're behind or missing the mark compared to their competitors. And what we have found at Perfeqta is that when we, talk to executive leaders, they are often asking us, well, what are companies our size, our industry, what are they doing that we're not doing, right? So do your research there and bring that into the conversation. Linking DEI goals to personal leadership objectives, please understand that every single leader is going to be on a different level of understanding, awareness, and engagement with DEI. And so kind of based on that, you'll really need to understand what's important to them, right? What's important to them. I know one leader truly cares about revenue, business, growth, and customer happiness and customer retention. Well, trust me, there are lots of studies and research that does show that DEI has a true connection there. Maybe you have a leader who really truly cares about employee retention. Bring that into the conversation. Highlight risk of inaction. Instead of hey, this is what will happen if we do this well, you could take the approach of, here's what will happen if we don't do this. Here's what the costs will look like if we don't step up here. So are there risks that are involved with the company not focusing on or putting investment into DEI? Encourage involvement in DEI activities. Sometimes leaders don't know exactly where to fit in. Even if you get a verbal commitment, great, right? They may need a little bit of coaching, guidance, or specific requests or asks on where you actually need them to show their visible and tangible support for DEI. That could look like leading a town hall, speaking on DEI vision, priorities, really having time to emphasize to the entire company why DEI is important. Maybe you want them to be an executive sponsor of an ERG, right? So find the ways that they can fit into your initiatives and put the ask out there. And then regular updates and reporting. I really wanted to double down on this because you don't want your leaders to lose that line of sight to what you're doing from a DEI perspective. So find the right frequency and method of keeping them updated and engaged. Of course, you want to show, hey, I got this, we're doing great, right? So you do want to find that balance of saying, hey, this is what we're doing well, but also here's where we need some support, right? So find a good balance of how often you are reporting this out and what information is most important to them. At Perfeqta, when we come in as our client partners, external DEI consultants or thought leadership partners, we send monthly updates to the executive leadership team. So we send monthly updates. We keep it very high level, right? We're not going initiative by initiative by initiative, but we are keeping it high level. So they know what's going on. They know things are moving forward. And if there is a specific, call to action or ask that we have, we'll work with our key contact to make sure that those asks are kind of being put out there. So as I start to close this out here, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. So I'm hoping that I answered your questions throughout, but go ahead and start dropping your questions in the Q&A box if you can. If you don't see it, feel free to just drop it in the chat as well. So to be successful, DEI at every company needs the 4 S's: support and sponsorship. You need financial support, you need the time support, you need executive sponsorship and buy-in, you need true strategy, aligning it with the company strategy, and you need effective systems. Systems of accountability, systems of continuous feedback and improvement. And this will set you all up extremely well for 2024. So as I close out, I encourage you to do a comprehensive assessment of your DEI current state, establish clear OKRs, secure commitment from the top down, and then find ways to regularly monitor your progress. With that being said, if you're thinking, okay, Latesha, I have no idea how to even assess or measure our current DEI state, I am so excited because at Perfeqta, our team has been working behind the scenes to actually create a free quiz for you all. This will only take you 10 minutes, and you can take this quiz to really understand your company's DEI maturity. The quiz is 20 questions. It's based on our maturity framework. And once you take the quiz, you'll get immediate results and recommendations on how to evolve DEI with the 6 categories of success that I shared with you all earlier. So we want to help you really understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your gaps, so that you can successfully set your 2024 goals. I'm going to drop in the chat right now a link to take our quiz, and let me know, was the quiz helpful? One of our client partners said that it was really helpful for her to be able to see her DEI progress categorized, and it was right on par with where she believes her company is. And the recommendations are very thorough. So I want you all to take it. And if you have questions about your results, you will have the opportunity to set up a conversation with me or someone on my team to really take a deep dive into the recommendations as well as your results. So this is backed by tons of research our team has put in and data, and we want to give you something that's free, that's easy, and that's helpful as you plan for 2024. How many of you all will take the quiz? How many of you all are interested in it? Now, we're asking you some very specific questions, okay? Don't get discouraged if maybe you're saying no more than you like. We understand that every company has an opportunity to grow here. There's progress to be made. Get through the entire quiz, and you will get to those recommendations. And I think it's going to be really helpful for you all. So we're really excited about it. Let us know your feedback on it. I'm seeing a lot of Definitely 100% yeses in the chat. So take the quiz, y'all. It's going to be really, really crucial. Thank you so much for coming today. We have a couple of questions here in the Q&A, so I want to take time to answer it before we close out. So the question is anonymous. I'm interested to learn more about how to close the gap between the CEO expressing authentic support and getting other senior leaders to authentically support and actively engage. I would love to just open this up to the floor as well. If you all want to drop in the chat what has helped you all, I'm going to drop this in the chat. So have there been things that have worked for you all, right? Here's one thing that we've done at Perfeqta that we've seen to be extremely helpful with our client partners who are struggling with this very thing is we'll come in and host a couple of guided facilitated discussions between the executive leadership team on how they vision DEI success. In those sessions, not only are we, helping them think deeply about DEI, the organization, we are also educating them on what DEI truly is, and not just in words, but in action. We link that to the business case. We link that to employee trust, and employee trust to employee creativity and innovation, productivity, and performance. And so we also provide them with resources. We put them together so that they can really learn from each other and build on each other where some of those gaps may exist, where the opportunities are for them to get aligned. And we have found that when executive leadership teams have an aligned vision, but they are also being trained and coached on how to talk about DEI, that will really push them to be more actively engaged with it. Oftentimes, what we've seen is that executive leaders aren't confident and they're not comfortable in engaging with DEI. So if you can get to the root of their relationship with DEI, their fears, why they're hesitant, and start to address that head on, that may help you with closing that gap. I will also say we do provide coaching. So we have found coaching to be very helpful as well. At Perfeqta, we do executive inclusive leadership coaching specifically. Because sometimes the guided facilitated sessions are good, but they need more one-on-one support. We need to have some really hard conversations. We may be thinking back to when you first started your career to now that you're at the point of an executive leader. What has been your evolution with inclusion, with equity along the way? What is your privilege? And how does that prevent you from actually seeing the barriers that exist from individuals of historically excluded groups and communities? So, that might be helpful as well. Bring in a coach to do, some really deep inner work with the executives. And that is something that I love doing, is coaching executive leaders, because sometimes you have to open up their eyes to those gaps, to those barriers, for them to really find their way of, oh yeah, I actually do need to do better in this area, and this is how I'm going to commit to doing it. Great. Well, I want to again thank you all so much for joining. I'm going to drop the quiz link in the chat one more time. It will take you 10 minutes. Make sure you get all the way to the end. Let us know. We'll see your results when you finish taking it, so you don't have to let me know, but I do want your feedback on it. We're always looking at ways to improve it, but I am excited for you all. Good luck with your 2024 goals. You got this. We're rooting for you at Perfeqta. And of course, if myself or my team at Perfeqta can support you in evolving your DEI efforts, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have a few open spots for some clients to provide training. If you need training for your executive team, all company training, we do that. Consulting, building a roadmap, or even just some advising or thought partnership on launching your DEI initiatives, then reach out to us. We'd love to work with you all and look forward to hearing more about your 2024 goals. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.